So in this video I want to talk about the process of fermentation. Fermentation is not anaerobic respiration. It is, however, an anaerobic process that can occur in the absence of oxygen. So if we look at glycolysis, the process, we start with a molecule of glucose. That molecule of glucose, through glycolysis, generates, ultimately, 2 molecules of pyruvate. Now, if conditions in the cell are appropriate, these molecules of pyruvate, as we've seen previously, will go on to make acetyl-CoA, and that acetyl-CoA will enter the citric acid cycle, and ultimately all of the NADH and FADH2 molecules produced throughout glycolysis, the oxidation of pyruvate, and the citric acid cycle will contribute to the electron transport chain. But in the event that there is no oxygen present, rather than the pyruvate entering the mitochondria, they will remain in the cytoplasm and undergo a process called fermentation. Now recall that in glycolysis, part of the process is where 2 molecules of NAD+ are reduced to 2 molecules of NADH. If the cell enters fermentation, or if the pyruvate enters fermentation, depending upon the organism, what will occur is one of 2 things. In human beings, the NADH will be used to reduce these pyruvates, oxidizing the NADH into NAD+, and the 2 molecules of pyruvate will be converted into 2 molecules of lactate. Okay, lactate is a 3-carbon compound. Each pyruvate is a 3-carbon compound. And in this way, the cell can endlessly fuel glycolysis. And you'll also remember, aside from the NADH, one of the other products of glycolysis is 2 net molecules of ATP. Okay? So, if the cell endlessly fuels glycolysis, it can make small amounts of energy. Okay? And this is a good thing if the cell is unable to acquire enough oxygen to carry out aerobic respiration. Okay, so this is in human beings. Again, this all occurs in the cytoplasm. Here's glycolysis. Over here, this is where we get into fermentation. Now, let's say it's not humans. Let's say that we're looking instead at yeast. Well, we're going to have something similar here, except that the end product, rather than it being lactate, is going to be 2 molecules of ethanol. Now, ethanol is a 2-carbon compound, so what that's going to mean is that there are going to be a variety of processes that occur throughout the entire course of the fermentation. And one of those processes is going to wind up in a single molecule of carbon dioxide leaving each of the pyruvates. So we remove a carbon from each of these, allowing us to then generate a 2-carbon compound. And again, we still refuel glycolysis by providing it with NAD+ molecules, which can allow us continuously to produce ATP as long as a sugar source or some form of energy source is present. So this is the concept of fermentation. The overall idea, it occurs in the cytoplasm, okay, in the absence of oxygen, and it allows the cell to endlessly fuel the process of glycolysis, producing ATP in small quantities as long as some form of energy source is present. So, really it is here, when these pyruvates are produced, where we either decide to undergo fermentation or to proceed into the remaining steps that are used in aerobic respiration. And this is all going to hinge on the fact of whether or not O2 is present or absent. In the event that oxygen is absent, we undergo fermentation. In the event that O2 is present, then we're going to continue on into the oxidation of pyruvate. So that's fermentation.